Hey guys, Crewman here. Now, a lot of GPUs claim to offer 4K performance, 4K gaming performance, but in my opinion, there are only a few GPUs that can actually deliver on that claim. With the previous generation's RTX 4070 Ti Super, that's a mouthful, at $800 MSRP being the best value entry-level 4K GPU of last generation in my opinion. Now, good luck finding it for anything less than $1,000 right now, but that just speaks to the craziness of the world we live in. Fast forward to the RX 9070 XT, and if you were able to score this thing at $600 like I or anybody else who lived close to a Micro Center and really wanted one on launch day were able to, then you basically have, hands down, the best value to performance to cost 4K, real 4K native gaming GPU that you can buy. Hands down, no questions asked. Now, if you did not get it at MSRP and you paid, say, between $800 and $900, is it the best value? Well, stay tuned at the end of this video when I'll give my final opinion on it. But in today's video, what I wanted to do was I wanted to go over the 4K performance of the RX 9070 XT, and I ran it in 5 pretty popular AAA games. You know, I didn't run it on any old school games. These are basically new and the best of the best. And I want to share with you my results and give you my, just like my opinion on how well the RX 9070 XT games in 4K. Now, this is not a review, as that will come later on. I just wanted to do a deeper dive into the performance of this thing, and I promise you, you will not be disappointed. So before we go over the gameplay footage, I want to point out one small discrepancy, and that is when you record a game on the same PC that you're running the game on, you're going to lose like an FPS or 2, maybe 3. And I want to use Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2 as an example of that. You can see this is the beginning scene, commonly used to benchmark this game, as it has a ton of gaunts on the screen, and it kind of really stresses the game out. So you can see that we have 55 FPS at that exact location. Now, when I get to the gameplay of Space Marine 2, I'm going to show you that same exact scene, and I'm going to point out this same exact point in the scene so you can see the FPS. Now, remember, up there you can see 50 FPS. And we are using the adrenaline overlay because I think it gives all the pertinent information, and it works. Alright, so here you can see Space Marine 2 in game in that same area. And we're getting about 55 to 57-ish FPS. This is the beginning scene where the gaunts flow down the hill. Upscaling is off, and settings are on high. Not ultra, they're on high because I got a little bit of an FPS drop on ultra. But the game looks fantastic. And you can see now where we're getting to that scene right here, and we've got about 53 FPS compared to the 55 when I just took that screenshot when I didn't have the recording on. But as you can see, we have no dips, and the 1% lows look great, and this game is 100% playable, and you're easily able to get close to that 60 FPS mark with upscaling off and and all the settings basically maxed. Now here we're moving to Marvel Rivals. I honestly think this game is the most poorly optimized game I've ever seen. It's cell shaded. I don't know why it pushes the graphics card so much. So we've got upscaling off. We're on high for settings. I didn't want to go to ultra because it dropped the FPS a little bit. And we're getting around 100 FPS. There's some times where I dip into the mid 80s. And then there are other times where I hit about 110. Now remember, this monitor can only do 120, so I'm hitting the cap. And I could easily hit the cap if I was willing to turn upscaling on or even lower the settings a little bit, which I don't necessarily think would matter. I don't know. I really like this game, and it's just a shame that it's so poorly optimized because there's no reason that it can't get Overwatch like FPS. Anyway, this is Marvel Rivals, and this is what I chose to represent an esports title. And you can see that the 9070 XT crushes it at 4K. This is Indiana Jones. Now remember, this is a heavy ray traced based game. You basically need an RT enabled graphics card to play it, and you can see how good the shadows look in this game. So I'm running it with FSR off, and we're running ray tracing, basically just shadows, and we're running it on low, and we don't have any other ray trace settings on. And it's working really well. We're getting close to the 60 FPS number. Now, I'm okay with getting a little bit lower, but got to remember that this this GPU in terms of ray tracing has the same performance of about a 3090. So you kind of have to be realistic in terms of what you're going to be able to do in terms of ray tracing. But like I said, this game is basically a benchmark for ray tracing, and look at how great it looks. Even with ray tracing on low, frankly, I wonder how much you're really even going to notice it when it's on medium or high. I might notice, but like if you're not obsessed with ray tracing like me, you might not. Now let's move on to Cyberpunk 2077. Now I have this game set at high settings. Basically everything is maxed except for ray tracing, which we have at low. Essentially with the 4080 and 4090, I have ray tracing on Psycho with path tracing off, but this is ray tracing on low because obviously the ray tracing cores are not as good. And you can see the FPS. And remember, we are on 4K, maxing out everything, and it looks good. You know, you can just see I'm picking a fight with some people. I just wanted to go into a high dense, high crowded area and make people run around, and you can see how great the game looks. And this is really impressive considering we're doing everything here at 4K native. Speaking of 4K native, this is a game, Black Myth Wukong. This is the testing benchmarking tool that brings this graphics card to its knees. I tried to run it on upscaling off, and settings were like medium basically, and ray tracing off, and it was getting like 15 FPS. So I have upscaling on. I basically have it at, I don't know, it's at 50%. I don't know what you would consider that. And ray tracing is at low. And you can see we're getting a playable FPS around mid 40s. But this game just, I don't know whether it's the drivers. I don't know what it is. But I promise you that this game hates these cards. And if you're obsessed with this game, this is not a good benchmark for the 9070 XT. But I would consider this an outlier, seeing as it did great on all the other games. So in conclusion, you watched me test a popular esports title in Marvel Rivals, a heavy CPU demanding game in Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine, and one of the latest AAA games, the most demanding ray tracing game out in Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, followed by a game that's typically brought most GPUs to its knees in Cyberpunk 2077, and finally a game that actually cripples most things, Black Myth Wukong. The 9070 XT in 4K performed very admirably. Considering how much it costs, the fact that you can now have a GPU at the $600 price point, assuming you can get one at MSRP, that is capable of playing 4K is incredible. Now let's get one thing straight. The ray tracing cores on this thing are about a generation or two, about 2 generations old if we're being honest. But that is a massive jump if you compare where they were a generation ago. If AMD can make this leap again, next generation, boy, we'll be talking. But honestly, the ray tracing performance on this card isn't bad. And I would highly, highly recommend this as a 4K gaming GPU. If you don't care about ray tracing and all you care about is raster, this is hands down, no brainer, the best GPU you can buy. If you care about ray tracing, it gets a little more complicated. And it really comes down to what you can get the cost of a GPU at. If you can find any of these models for, let's say, $800 or less, I would highly recommend buying it. I know this current marketplace stinks, and I know MSRP is mostly a myth, but like I said, at $800, I think that this GPU is a phenomenal value, even in this current marketplace. And I think if prices come down in, say 6 months or so, you won't regret spending $800 on this thing, in my humble opinion. Again, I'm very, very happy with this GPU. So thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe for more AMD GPU content. We're going to have quite a bit more testing on this GPU, and look for the review to come in about a week or two. That's it for this one. Peace out.